Hello, visibility hackers, and welcome to today's episode of The Live Show. I'm your host, Coach Molle from visibilityhacking.com, and as per usual, we're going to start out with an update of what has been going on in the visibility hacking world this week. Whew! It has been quite busy behind the scenes. I've been building out some funnels and some interesting programs that are really going to help you guys get started. So many people get stuck in the idea of building their connection machine because once you get to a certain point, you realize how much work is actually required to be ready to be effective with your connection machine. So we've been building out the steps and the systems that you need in order to get ready, in order to be ready to take on visibility in a completely different way, to really build out that visibility for your brand, for your business. So that has been happening behind the scenes. In order to get that exciting and launched and out there for you guys, we have also been working on the visibilityhacking.com website, our funnel hub, if you will. So we have been waiting for the relaunch of ClickFunnels 2.0, or the new launch of ClickFunnels 2.0, which was supposed to start in October. It is now February. So instead of waiting around for that launch to happen, we just went ahead and rebuilt our funnel hub in the original ClickFunnels. So you guys can still enjoy it. It's still out there, still great information. And whenever 2.0 decides to be launched into the world, then we will be updating that. But we'll be updating that live with you guys in the Visibility Hacking group. If you're not already in the Visibility Hacking group, why don't you come join us? So those in the group will get access to it behind the scenes of when we start learning the system, when we start building it out. If you are also exclusively interested in learning about 2.0 when it's released, you can join us in our Learning 2.0 group. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comments and I will 100% hook you up with that. Other thing we've been working on in the visibility hacking world, we can't really share with you just yet, but I promise you it's pretty big, it's pretty huge, and it's going to help a ton of you guys get seen with your business. And I'm super excited for that. So without further ado, why don't we start today's episode officially with our quote of the week. Today, our quote of the week is to do one thing every day that scares you. Showing up for your people, for many entrepreneurs, for many people getting into the digital space, for many people who are growing their business, showing up for your people on a consistent, regular basis can be really, really scary. And so I want you to step into that. If that is what you're feeling when the idea of showing up alive for your people, creating that content, or even when we challenge you to create content without editing it before you send it out into your people, that can feel really, really scary. And I want you to embrace that. I want you to step into that. Because every day, if you do something that scares you every single day, you will begin to push that boundary of what we call your comfort zone. It'll start stretching further and further out. So you'll be able to explore more things while feeling totally safe and comfortable and be able to push on those limits and know that each day when you push yourself just that little bit further, you'll be able to grow in so many ways. And today we require you to step into a place that might feel a little bit scary, but we're going to be able to create incredible things. So I'm going to teach you today, this week, about the art of being everywhere. So let's get into it. The art of being everywhere. When it comes to playing the game in the digital space, you have to be able to consistently show up with valuable content and break through the noise of everything else that's being posted on social media. I know these tools enable us to connect with our ideal audience on a really granular level, but the reality is, so can everybody else. So our social feeds are being bombarded, being flooded with content that is of varying levels of value. But we want you to stand out from the crowd, right? We want to increase our levels of perception so that we can increase our engagement and ultimately increase our conversions, right? If you've been around in the visibility hacking community for a little bit, you understand what those three different areas are for our goal setting. And so how do we break through that social noise? How do we become the person who can be everywhere at the same time without having to pull out our hair? That is a journey that I have been on for quite a while. And I realized the power of being everywhere. Because before my brand was anything that anyone knew about, I was just hustling it on different Facebook groups, in different communities, in different in-person programs. I was hustling it like it was nobody's business. But eventually, when I realized that I can leverage the things that I'm already doing and start to post them in places that make it look like I'm live, or at least make it look like I have a substantial presence on that platform. And once I clued into that, everything changed in my business. I know I say that constantly, but I mean it, because what happened was I stopped having to go out and find new customers. And instead, I turned to my messages and realized that because I had been positioning myself as the expert in my niche, and I had been creating content and putting it out there in a way that made it look like I was everywhere, customers started finding me. They started realizing what it is that I do. What kinds of tangible results do my people get when they work with me? They started to realize that without me having to sit on any kinds of sales calls. Because you guys know me, if you've been here before, I was afraid to ask for $100 for my work. And now I'm able to sign $100,000 deals in a day, in a weekend, multiple over the course of a week if I really needed to with my business. And that transformation happened when I stopped having to chase down leads. And instead, I created a connection machine that allowed my ideal customers who were out there to find me, to self-qualify themselves as an ideal client for me, to reach out and do the legwork themselves to get in touch with me. And by the time I said yes to taking them on as a client, they were ready to work with me. That took a lot of headache off of my shoulders. It took a lot of work off of my shoulders and my team, and allowed us to focus on actually growing the business, on serving and over-delivering to those clients who have chosen to work with us. And so today, in this episode, this conversation is all about building that, or playing in the art and science of being everywhere. I'm going to share with you some strategies that we use that worked at the beginning of our business, that hold true now and hold true to our clients who are pushing 8 and 8+ figures in their business as well. So this is really cool. And what I love about it is that the tools we have at our fingertips, be them our cell phones, our laptop computers, the things that aren't actually going to cost hundreds and thousands of dollars like traditional marketing could cost for your business. These are tools that allow us to connect with those customers. It allows us to present ourselves as the expert, to share that expertise, and to automate the process of onboarding and indoctrinating those who are interested in working with us, which is all of my favorite things to do in one. So today's adventure into connection machines is all about micro content. So, but without getting too far into this, I want to introduce to you guys one half of the Biz Bros. And I brought him on because this is Lewis, and I wanted you guys first to get to know him because he's friggin' amazing. He and his brother run an awesome show that you guys need to check out. When you want to see how a live show can truly serve your audience, position yourself as the expert, and start to drive customers to you, you have to look at the show that the Biz Bros are putting on. All the links will be down below. If they're not, if you're watching this live, just comment below. I will make sure I get those links to you guys. So without further ado, let's just dive straight into my conversation with my favorite half of the Biz Bros, where we just straight up dive into talking about his show. Hey, tell us about your show.
About the show? Sounds good. So yeah, we have this show called Content's Profit. You might or might not heard of it, but we started it right at the beginning of the pandemic, which is insane. So it was like our last resource to save our business, our struggling business at the time. We lost about like 80% of our clients at the time because we had a lot of small businesses. Let's see this camera. Boom, boom, boom. There we go. Sometimes I merged with the wall, but anyway, so we lost about 80% of our business at the time, and we had like 2 months worth of runway. It was just me and my brother at the time. We were freelancing, and we're like, hey, every single person, our coach, every single one, they said like, you guys should have a platform. You guys should have some kind of a show, some kind of a podcast, YouTube channel, anything. Like just create, right? And at the time, we already like crushed like 245 lives, which is our internal personal, content creation challenge. That we also have like a public version of it, which is awesome. But we're like, okay, we did this live. Why don't we translate this into a podcast show or a show or something, our platform? Like we didn't really know what it was. And then we decided to launch it. So March 15th, 2020 was actually the first episode. I think we're like past episode 240 right now, which is insane. So the commitment was, let's do 3 live shows a week. Why? To speed up the process. We're like, okay, it's a numbers game at that point. It's like, okay, if we want to accelerate our learning and our learning curve on how to produce a show like this, we got to do it repeatedly, right? So every day was kind of crazy for like a 1-hour show. And so we decided 3 times a week. We had a client at the time that was producing 3 times a week as well. And we're like, okay, we gotta do this. So after 20 episodes or so, it was just me and my brother. We ran out of things to say. We're like, so, okay, now what? What are we actually going to do? So either we need to learn more, right? Or either we need to like start doing a little bit more research. We cannot just go off the cuff at that time. So we started interviewing a lot of people. And right after that, we started creating these incredible connections. And in about 3 weeks, we were able to recover everything that we lost in like sales wise. And then in about 6 months, we double like everything sales, and our team scaled from just us to about 6 people that we currently have as team members, which is incredible, right? So, and then out of that, a version of our service evolved, a version of our service got better. We started serving people. We launched a public challenge. The first time that we did it, we had about 100 people in there, which was insane. So the whole business really shifted and changed and evolved and got better because of the Content's Profit show. We often say like, hey, if worst case scenario happens, right, the last thing to go is the show. So it's been a fun journey over this like 240 something episodes.
That is absolutely incredible, and it speaks to your level of consistency. And people feel overwhelmed when they're thinking about starting a show, and they think, oh, I have to produce every single day a new piece of content, a new master core piece of content that's going to serve my people. Yeah. And that's really overwhelming. So you picked a schedule. I love that. So those of you guys listening at home, pick your schedule. 3 days a week, fantastic. If you want to ramp that up later on, perfect. But start with something you can be consistent with. Tell us more about that 45-day live, because that is something that I did with you guys. And it's something I do internally with my team. And I think it's super powerful. Tell us about
absolutely. It. So this was like probably 6 or 7 months before we actually started the show. Fonzie is my fact checker. So he's not here today, but basically we were in this meeting and we were selling our service at the time to about 8 business owners, right? And we were sitting in this table and we're pitching the whole thing. And we're like, hey, and we had this amazing case study with a network of 8 different like fitness studios. And we're like showing the results, and part of it is what we do now as an agency. And we're like, look at everything and the retention and, the attrition and all these like fancy like numbers, right? And all owners sat there and they're very politely be like, oh, this is so awesome. Like, thank you so much. And then this one guy stands up and he's like, okay, I get it, but where is your stuff? Like, where's your content, right? And at the time, we weren't producing anything internally because it was just me and my brother. We were freelancing, so like we were busy executing and doing that for other clients. So a lot of service providers that start that way, we relate because we've been there, right? Like we're like, okay, I have limited resources, which is my skills, my time. So, and those are assigned to work on my clients. So then I'm exhausted mentally and physically to then try to figure out what my own content strategy is, right? And that was the reason we weren't producing anything. We were like, okay, we're just going to do this for our clients. And we're like literally silence. We only had a sales page. Our only presence was a sales page. And we have to put it out there in the world. But it was like, it started with a pen, and it was like this sales letter that I wrote, like it's gold. And we call it the 6-figure sales letter because we actually sold more than 6 figures with that website out there, even though it wasn't related with anything that we did. So there's another story on that. But anyway, so we're like, okay, we came out of that meeting with no deals, right? Even though the feedback was very positive because of what that guy said, right? And maybe today I would have answered a little bit different. But at the time, it felt like a gut punch. It was like, oh my gosh, we need to figure this out. So we sat down the next day and we're like, okay, how can we create anything consistently, right? Because in our heads, we're like, okay, we need highly produced videos because Fonzie is really good at highly produced videos. Like that's how we were known, the video guys, right? Like we invested in these cameras and we will go out to big corporate events and we'll record these videos, right? And but that was a lot of friction because then we had to edit the videos and we had to produce them and we had to do all this stuff, right? So that's why they weren't getting done. So we identified the friction points, which was the quality, right? The editing time that we didn't have. So it was constrained on those resources. So we're like, okay, we just came out of a challenge called 75 Hard by Andy Frisella, which was a physical challenge. It was insane. It was 75 days of 2 workouts a day, right? And we finished it. We crushed it, right? And we're like, wow, that really created a dent in our life. It created new habits. It created like very positive momentum. How can we replicate that in content? So we're like, okay, let's look at what's out there. So we saw like 7-day challenges, 5-day challenges, even 30-day challenges. And we're like, okay, well, that's all. Like, I personally don't want to do that. That doesn't sound exciting enough, I guess. It was like, okay, well, 5 days and then what, right? Probably an upsell, right? Probably they'll sell you something, right? Or, 7 days and then what? Like, I stopped producing. And me, my past is studio manager. I used to run fitness studios. I had a network of about 10 studios, and every single manager was so busy with their day-to-day operations that they didn't have time to create anything. So I'm like, okay, probably a small business owner, which was our client at the time, doesn't have time to do this. So let's put ourselves in that position. So we're like, okay, this is the rules. We got to produce content for 45 days in a row. Why 45 days? It just sounds awesome, right? It just sounds awesome. There's no scientific reason behind 45 days. It's just that it sounds awesome and it looks great on a t-shirt. So we're like, okay, 45 days. And we have to produce no matter what. So that's how it started. And it was a commitment to ourselves to create. What happened after was incredible, right? After 15 days of producing content daily. And it was literally, we jump on with the least amount of friction possible on a phone. In my case, Fonzie added a little bit more friction. He wanted to like make it pretty for Instagram Live or whatever. But I was like, literally, I'm going to publish this on Facebook and I'm going to put it on LinkedIn and that's it. And the videos were less than 10 minutes. In about 15 days, we got a phone call of somebody that has been watching, never commented, never engaged, never did nothing. And he's like, hey, I've seen what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are talking about. Let's meet up. And that resulted in our first like $80,000 like deal, which was like, what? It was the most amount of money that we've ever seen in our lives, right? And we were able to work with that company for over a year. We built their internal team because they transitioned to that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what a great opportunity, right? So we stopped after 15 days. We didn't actually complete the whole 45 live. And then we did a version 2. There's a whole story after that. But that's the beginning of the challenge.
Oh, I love it. So building accountability in it. So finding your partner if you're going to do a show with a partner, if that helps you out, guys. If it's stacking up guests ahead of time so that you are committed to the experts you're bringing onto your show. Whatever it is that helps you stay consistent, that's going to keep you creating content. And by doing that, that's how you're going to get noticed by people. That's how you get those magic phone calls, which I have had a couple in my life as well, and they are beautiful.
Yeah.
Even even if that magic phone call doesn't actually start with an $80,000 offer from a client, but instead is that first subscriber or that first follower or that next follower, that's how you're going to get recognized. That's the secret of organic content marketing, my friends.
That is
So
right.
tell us about how constantly creating this kind of content has helped serve your community. So we've talked about bringing new people in, but what about the people who are already in your environment? How does your show also serve them?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually a challenge that we're like trying to solve right now, right? Because when we started, we are like, okay, we're in this like very urgent need of money. So that like the whole effort was like, okay, who's closest to cash that we can serve, right? So that was the focus. And then as we started getting more resources, we're like, okay, now with these resources, call it money, right? We can now go higher. And then so we free a little bit of our time. The team, we have a whole production team now, right? So we handle everything else. And we're like, okay, as we started happening, we didn't really start noticing like an audience until like past episode 100, 100
Yep.
something, right? And we're like, oh, there's people actually sending us DMs. There's actually people out there. And like we literally didn't see any data, like podcast
Yeah.
wise or show wise, in about 6 months because the sole focus was like, okay, we need to produce it, right? Because if it's not out there, there's nothing that comes after. I mean, the consistency is the mother of everything, right? Like if we have to put it out there. So that was the sole focus. Once we master the consistency with those elements that you mentioned, for example, hey, let's schedule everything ahead. Like let's make sure that we have people lined up. The fact that we do it live, we do it live for us. There's no other like secret, algorithm secret. No, it was just for us because we perform better live, right? I'd rather do that than record it. And we just get it out of the way as well. Like we're like, okay, we don't have to produce it. We actually do everything live, all the transitions, all the promos, all the intros, everything is live because we identify that that's a huge friction point for us and it's helped the team a lot, right? So identifying those things. Now, about episode 100 or so, we're like, okay, there's actually people sending us the messages. Now let's start the conversation. So now a lot of the things that they wanted was, okay, where can we gather? Like if I'm not at the high ticket that you guys sell, how can you guys help me, right? And we're like, oh, okay, now we have to build something for them. And that's when the 45 Live first challenge was born, in an attempt to bring that community inside of, in our case, a Facebook group. So now what's happening is like, okay, more people are interested, and we're like, okay, because our focus as a company has been on the high end, we're like, well, here's our resource, here's the thing, here's like for free, like take it, like do it, implement it. But now people keep asking for more. They're like, well, what else? And then so we launched a workshop. It was like a whole Saturday workshop. It was incredible. We had a great feedback, right? Okay, what next? So content wise, we're like, okay, we're currently building that journey inside of the community because they deserve a little bit different than just the show. The show is streamed for them as well because it's incredible resources. The entrepreneurs that come are incredible. But at the same time, it's like they come in with certain problems, certain things. So over the last month, we've been jumping on calls nonstop to find out what those issues are. At the end of the day, is a lot of consistency, a lot of production questions, right? A lot of mindset questions, because when you start putting your thoughts into words, that you go through a transformation yourself, right? It's not easy for a lot of people to do this. For me, I guess, because I'm an extrovert, I think it was a little bit more easy or a little easier. My English is not very good looking today. A little bit easier to jump on a camera, right? I'd rather do that than write. My brother, for example, loves to write. So he'll do that and then jump on the camera, right? So we got to discover what is my internal framework so I can actually create, right? Because every company today, small business, solopreneur, anything, you have to have a content, a media side of it, because that becomes your asset when you go to, if you're an employee of somebody, that becomes your asset when you go to interviews, right? If you're a small business owner, that becomes your asset because you can create leads, build relationships, right? If you're a big business owner, a company, right? You got to control your message. You got to make sure that you control what's going out. So, okay, how do we actually create those frameworks? And that's what we're currently working on.
Ooh. So listening to your people is an absolutely essential skill when you're building these connections. And it's so cool. You actually jump on calls with people, and that's, you're not the first person who said that. There's been a couple of people who build it into their process to have these moments of contact with their people. whether they've just purchased a product or they've just opted into an email list. Getting them on that call, even if it's a no pressure, no sales call, I just want to bond with you. I just
Yeah.
want to get to know you. That's yeah, I like that. What have you found from like any like crazy insights that you've gotten from these calls?
Yeah, that our assumptions were completely off. And it was funny because we in our heads, right? Like we're so in it, right? Like we're doing this day in, day out. We're helping people at I guess a little bit of a higher level, right? When we manage different teams, and it's like, okay, they already conquered some of these baselines things that when the audience comes in, these are people that are looking for information, or I'm quoting, like air quoting, hacks, right? Like, and we hate anything that comes with hack. Is all about like your consistency, how can you make it your own, right? So in our heads it was a lot about on the sales side, on like all this stuff, which is really important, right? But the questions that we were getting was more of like, how do I actually get it out? So they were like 2-3 steps behind the sales, because if that consistency, we talked about this, is not there. And it was a very specific moment. We were actually at an event and we're walking back to our hotel room, and this person we were like walking next to like a cafe, right? And we see this guy, he looks at us and he stands and he starts walking like parallel to us, and we're like, oh my gosh. And we start like walking a little bit faster, and we're like, what's happening? And that person like cuts us off, right? And we're like, we stand and we're like, what's going on? And the guy's like, oh my gosh, you guys are the Luises, right? Like the Luis brothers. And we're like, yeah, dude, I love your show. And we're like, oh man, thank you. And he's like, and it was like probably the first time that we were recognized out in the wild, right? So it was like pretty like surreal for us. And but this guy, we start chatting with him, and it turns out his name is Jeff, right? And he lives in our city, right? And we were in a whole different location. And we start talking, and he's launching this incredible book that he wrote for his kid, right? And I was like, oh, this is a great opportunity. So we actually sat down with him and we're like, okay, Jeff, we have a couple of questions for you, right? Why do you listen to the show? Like, what are some of the issues that you come? Like, why are you interested in the show? Why are you interested in the topic? Why are you interested in what we do? Why are you in the community, right? So all these questions led to, in his case, a lot of like baseline production side of things, where like, how can I actually be consistent with the tools and the resources that I have, which if I go back is when we started 45 Live. We're like, oh, okay, that's where it is. So that interaction that lasted about 2 hours, we're like, we need to do this. And as soon as we got back in town, we started sending DMs to people that have been in the email list, people that have purchased, the high-end clients. So we were able to collect this massive array of like objections, problems, things that they were doing, like that was happening right off the bat. And it was completely different of what we thought it was. So that gave us a lot of insight. And what was cool is that each one of these calls, right, we put a container. We were, okay, these are 30 minutes, right? And then we will offer, hey, let's continue to do this because it's super valuable for us as well. And as a thank you, we'll help. And the value that they got, the value that we got, it was incredible. And now the relationship is a lot higher. And every single person is like, hey, whenever you have this ready, send me a DM. I'm down. Right. And he's like, okay, look, I wasn't even trying to sell. I'm like, I just trying to find out how can we serve you more. And I feel like a lot of people are really scared of that. I'll give you another example. We were consulting with a fitness, is a national fitness franchise. And they have several locations in here. So we went in to help with a couple of their studios, right? And one of the first things that we asked them is like, hey, let's go out after some of the members. You have, 200, 300 members in your locations. Let's go ask them what they want, right? The business owners of those studios, or the owners of those studios, were petrified to go ask these questions, right? It's like, hey, they're going to uncover all these things. I'm like, that's perfect. This is exactly what we need to uncover, because if we solve these problems, right? How does that translate? It translates into them staying more months, into them liking more and more if we fix them, right? So I feel like a lot of people are in that place where they're really scared because they don't know how, they don't know first the problems that they're going to encounter, right? And then they don't know how to face those problems, and that uncertainty creates that confusion, and then they don't do it. But it's absolutely necessary if you want to serve your clients or audience.
It's this crazy idea that the customer, okay, I don't fully agree with the customer is always right, but I understand the ethos of that. The customer is what's paying your bills. The customer is the one who's going to keep opening up their wallet if you're producing content and services that are going to be valuable to them. They're going to stay in your world because you've over delivered. I wore the perfect shirt.
Yeah.
So by creating a show that's creating valuable content, bringing on experts that share great stuff, bringing in new cool resources that help them solve a problem, asking your people, having this two-way conversation, asking your people what they need help with, what they're struggling with, isn't shining light on your skeletons in your closet for your business. That's what a lot of people get scared about. It's instead the complete opposite. It's saying, "Hey guys, you're part of our movement. You're part of our community. Let's all turn our flashlights on and shine light into the spots that we can redecorate together." You're getting their feedback. They're helping build your business, and they
Yeah.
have that mental buy-in when you get that from them, and it's beautiful, all from live content.
Yeah,
Great.
absolutely.
So you are one of the biggest masters of repurposing content.
Mhm.
I have,
Thank you.
like, sometimes I will watch a core piece of your content and see the micro content you guys do off of that for the next, like, 2 or 3 weeks, and every time it hits me. I love it. So,
Thank you.
how do you what's the process in your brain that you go through after you create your core content, and how do you chop it up? How do you repurpose it? How do you pick what's worth it? Tell us about all your golden nuggets, all of that fun stuff.
All the secrets. Awesome. Yeah. So we started with like a hypothesis, right? Is that how you say it? Yeah. So we're like, okay, like out of the 45 live, right? We're like, okay, how can we leverage our time creating this, right? If I spend 10 minutes creating this piece, right? I did some research or I told a story, right? That there has to be some value in it, right? That the value of the pieces, right? We call it golden boulders, right? So it's like, okay, what are the golden boulders inside of like this piece of content that we can share to the world, right? And the objective, this is very important. A lot of people come in like, okay, I need it for my followers. I need it for more followers. Well, when we're starting, there's no followers. That's the thing. Like we gotta build that, right? So okay, our first like thing that we thought about is like, okay, if we put as many pieces of content as possible, right? The algorithm is gonna take care of that, right? It's gonna take care of distribution. It's gonna take care of like who sees what. But then what happens is we're gonna have more opportunities to see what topics are resonating with people. So let's say, we can pick either Facebook or YouTube, doesn't matter. But let's say on YouTube, right, I publish twice a week. Those are two opportunities that we have to see what's resonating, right? If we publish 7 times a week, we have 7 opportunities to see what's resonating. Okay. So we're like, I don't have the time, or I don't want to create 7 different videos. Now, out of this one piece of content, right, that I create very strategically, right, I need 7 different sections. So you can pre-plan it, or you can do your thing and then on post-production take care of it, right? That's total personal preference, right? For us, how we did it is like, okay, we're investing this time in building this relationship with our guests, right? We're investing the time in doing the show. Our show is about an hour. Out of that, there's a lot of information that can be shared. So out of that information, we obviously ask questions related to what we do. So how to turn your content into profit. That is the main thing, right? Part of that is the multi-purposing of the content. That's what we do as a service, right? So, but on top of that, it's like, okay, these incredible guests, they have years of experience. So what are those pieces that we can select to do that? So how we do it is we call it M2M. That's our system, right? So we go from macro to micro content. Perfect. Like there's literally no side, like there's no secret. Is that from macro to micro assets? Now, how you decide to do this is like, okay, where do you want to be present, right? Are you somebody that wants to leverage TikTok? Are you somebody that wants to leverage Facebook with ads, right? Are you somebody that loves Instagram and love the visuals, and maybe you're a quote card person, right? At the end of the day, it's like, what do you feel comfortable? We have this concept called content umami, right? And umami is this Japanese concept where you eat and you're fully satisfied, but you're not like super full, right? You're like, oh, I ate the right amount. I don't feel bloated. I feel great. That's content. And so what is your content umami? Where is the content that you feel awesome sharing, that you're very proud of sharing, right? Whether that's yours, whether that's your guest, whether that's a quote card, whether that's very visual appealing, right? It's very subjective to your own preference, right? And we deal with every single one. We have people that are like, just put that piece of information there on a white background and we're good, right? There's other people that really want to highly produce very good looking thing, right? But at the end of the day, my good looking might be very different to your good looking, right? So at the end of the day, it's like, how do you recognize that? Now we create something that we call content map, right? From that content map, it's like, okay, what is the structure of these pieces? What are the ideas that we're selecting? what is the time of these ideas? Is this less than a minute? Is it more than a minute because of the different platforms? And once that map is set up, what we do is we design the whole map. So it's like, how is visually going to look like? Are we randomizing it? Are we, keep it very consistent over the time, right? What is it? How is it going to look visually? What is the call to actions? Where do we want to drive people to? And what that's done, our personal map has about 20 pieces of content, right? So, okay, perfect. Now we do that 3 times a week, right? So now we know, okay, from this episode, we're going to actually grab 6, 7 ideas, right? That those 6, 7 ideas are divided in different types of content for different platforms. And then the distribution starts. That's where a lot of people get stuck, is on the distribution. They create it and then they're exhausted after creating all of this, and then they don't distribute it. So we actually had a very fun story with a client. He comes in and it's like, okay, I want as much content as possible. I'm like, okay, what's a perfect scenario? 50 pieces of content. I'm like, sounds good. Are you ready? Like, who do you have to distribute this? It's myself. I'm like, okay, here's how I recommend. Let's start a little bit smaller. Let's start like 10 pieces a week, right? This is the platforms that you use. No, I want 50. Okay, sounds good. So we deliver 50. And, we go on a call and we have a distribution call where it's like, hey, here's the fastest way to distribute this. For example, we distribute a full week worth of content that are more than 400 pieces or points of contact in different platforms. That's a month. So it's about 100 a month, 100 a week, sorry. How do we distribute that? In about an hour a week, right? So it's like, okay, we teach that so people can get their time back. So we go through this and like, here's where you put it. After a week, we get a call, like, guys, let's go back to the 10 pieces. So that's fine. And then we conquer the 10 pieces, and then we increase it to 20. And then we increase it to he increases his resources because he got more clients. We were able to hire a VA. So it evolves, right? So that's kind of how we do it. We get the macro, right? The macro is structured in a certain way, so our team knows where to pick those ideas. Those ideas are based off current problems in our marketplace, current solutions that our audience wants to hear right now. At the very beginning was just assumptions to test, and then we create those pieces and distribute. So that's in an essence. I hope it helped.
Micro content is something that is overwhelming to a lot of people on a good day. So it's nice to know that there's people who we can hand that off to. So Louis, thank you so much for being part of the show today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Molly.
Top 10 micro content resources. Number 10 is definitely Canva. And as I always recommend, get a Canva Pro account. These things that you can do with Canva is pretty fantastic. It's like having Photoshop in your computer without having to pay that recurring crazy fee that Adobe does. But if you're just getting started, or if you've been in this game for a while, Canva is definitely on my list of top 10 resources for micro content. What's number 9?
Number 9 is something that is just came out, is in beta testing. It's called Welder Studio. So these guys are actually bootstrapping this company. We got the pleasure to jump on a call with them and help them developing the whole thing. But you can actually do your live show, and then that live show stream is saved on their platform, and you can actually create your chops or your clips immediately right inside of it. So it solves a lot of the issue of like, oh my gosh, I need to use like 3,000 tools on the back end to solve this problem. Is right there. Now, again, beta test is live right now as we're recording this episode. So hopefully they continue to grow and make this product a lot better, because it solves a lot of issues and it gives you back a lot of time.
Oh, I like that. Number 8 is a no excuses resource for you guys. Start with whatever video editing software your computer came with. Yeah. I started with iMovie. You can start with whatever it is that's already preloaded. You don't need anything fancy. Just get started, my friends. Now, what about number 7?
Number 7 is the mighty StreamYard. We're actually doing the show right now on StreamYard. We've done our show on StreamYard, I think probably 200 plus episodes. We started with like this crazy connection with Ecamm Live and Skype, and it was just a mess. And we're like, you know what? StreamYards make it super easy. We actually stream to like 5-6 different platforms when we do the show live. That just creates a lot of leverage for our guests as well. We're like, hey, by the way, we're on all these platforms. They love it. And it's just very easy. Our team has backend access to like download it. If it's no a team and it's just you have backend access to kind of download this. Make sure that you use the paid version. It's not much. I think it's like $10 or $15 a month. It is totally worth it because it's going to save. You can download audio only and you can download your video, and then you can do wonderful things with it. But it's so easy and simple to use that even my 2-year-old Luca son can actually go ahead and do it.
Now, number 6 is fantastic for those who have big production teams. Say you want to do your live content on a regular basis, but you don't want to do all the production. You got a team for that. What kind of resources can big teams use?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's two. So number 6 is Riverside.fm. This is kind of, I believe it's a competitor of StreamYard, but it's a little bit of a higher level. So what it does, the difference is that it saves 2 different video files on the back end. So let's say you're doing an interview, so you can record your video file locally, and it will record and upload to the cloud your guest. So what happens is on the post-production, if you are the one editing that video or you have a team, you can download those 2 files and do beautiful things for YouTube or other platforms because you have those 2 separate files.
Now, what about number 5?
Number 5. Okay, number 5 is kind of like the evolution of that. It's something called Iconic. This is a company that we found. We do have a fully remote team. They all work in Adobe. So what happens? Okay, we have this framework on the process of production. And this basically condensed 7 different steps into one simple platform. Now, you do need Adobe products and you need to be very well versed on this. I personally am not, but the team is. And I basically run them through the framework and they do all this. What happens is you upload this video. What happens in a lot of places is that you have to download that video, which sometimes is very, very heavy on a different part of the world, and internet connections might be a little bit different, right? So it just takes a lot of time to just download and then work on that file, re-upload it, and then there's 7 different versions of that video. So what this does is you upload it once. The whole team works on something called Proxy, which is a low-res version that's on the cloud, and it works kind of like a Google Doc, but for video editing. So they work on that one file, then you download the final files on your home base or your headquarters, and it's wonderful. You can tag content. There's a big AI. You get the transcriptions. So it's just very, very, very awesome, but it is for if you have a team.
Yeah. When I work in teams, I love the fact that we can share a Google Doc and we can all be working on the same thing. And if I can highlight something, I can edit something, I can take it out if I want to.
Yeah.
But I've always wondered if there was a tool that was as easy to use as that would be good for video and podcasting. And I think we have that as number 4 on our list. Tell us about number 4.
Yeah, number 4 is Descript. I remember when this came out, we were working with this client and they discovered it on their own, right? And we knew a little bit about it, but this simplifies the whole process. And what we did is they transitioned to a full in-house team, and then we coach them on the framework to use this tool. So Descript, what it does is you can upload your video, and then it will give you a full transcript, and you can edit video or podcast audio based on text. So you can highlight different sections of the text. You can take them out. You can select them as clips. So it's very, very easy to use. And at the same time, it gives you this incredible transcription that you can use it for SEO purposes, different things, notes, and it's just everything in that one platform. You have different users, access for your team, if you have one, that they can collaborate live on the platform.
All right, now we're breaking into the top 3. So these are golden boulders, that's for sure. So what's number 3 on our list?
Number 3 on our list is something called Veed.io. So it's VEED.io. And they're also a bootstrap company. I think the founders are friends with the people in Wilder. But basically what they did is this, you can upload your clips once they're already chopped, and then you can create your micro assets on the back end. So you can put headlines, you can put progress bars. So it makes it very, very easy. You can format the video, different sizes, different things. And that's actually how we started. Fonzie and I, as freelancers, I personally had zero experience editing video, and this is the tool that made me look like a pro so we can land those clients. So go check them out. It's awesome, and it's very easy to use as well.
I dig it. Okay, number 2 is definitely super important, because if you're using your show as a way to bring on experts, to share them with your people, and you need to schedule all of those episodes because you are being consistent, hashtag no excuses, my friends. Number 2 on our list is definitely something you're going to want to check out. It's Calendly, or any other calendar scheduling application that you can find out there. It's a way that you can send out a very simple link to your entire calendar to your people. They can select what date they want to hang out with you and come on your show, and you can automate that process back and forth. And it's fantastic because it will save up so much of your time with those back and forth messages of, Oh, does Tuesday at 7 work for you? No, it doesn't work for me. Does Friday at 3, can I slot you in? How long will this be? What's the link? Sorry, I forgot all of that headache will be
Yeah.
pushed aside when you head over to calendly.com or you find another schedule that works for you. So go get scheduling. Now, okay.
Yeah.
Number 1 on the list.
Oh
Drum
boy.
roll, please, my friends.
Let's
If
go.
you really want to create top quality content, you come over here, you come to the Visibility Hacking Studios, and then you have these great big macro content and you're like, but I need it chopped up and I need to be everywhere and I got all these great resources, but I don't want to do it myself. Our number 1 resource for you guys. Lewis, tell them who it is.
Oh boy. Do I? Can you tell yourself?
You might know a thing or two about them.
Yeah, I might know a thing or two, but yes, it's us, the Biz Bros with Content Momentum. We actually have a program that the name is Content Momentum, is to create that consistency, right? What is the perfect content scenario look for you? Do you want to be everywhere, right? You don't want the hassle of like having to create and figure out all these tools and do it yourself, right? You do have some resources that you want to invest and get your time back. So there's a full team on the back end that will create all that for you. We even go and do a lot of the research for you on the back end. If you don't have guests, we jump on calls. Our team jumps on calls with you and asks you these questions that are related to your market. So you do your thing. And then from that is a macro that we grab to create all these content. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But in essence, it's like, okay, what is your perfect content scenario? We do it high volume consistently. And even if you don't create content, we got content for you. There's a secret there. That's an Easter egg that we prepared because, sometimes life happens and sometimes you want to take a break, but content can be consistent on the back end and we take care of that. So, yeah.
Amazing. Top 10. There it is. My friends, building your micro content machine should not be an overwhelming process. You should feel pretty confident because you have incredible stuff to put out there into the world. So if you're creating the right kind of content, you can actually create a machine, a content machine, a connection machine with all of this micro content. That is the secret to being everywhere. So how do we do this? In 3 simple steps? Well, the first step is to identify and plan. We have to know who our avatar is. What kind of content do they need? We also have to look at all of the different platforms that we're on. Remember, we're not trying to be on every platform at the same time. So whatever platform map you have, you want to identify those platforms and what kind of content is required for each of those platforms that you're on. For example, if you're on YouTube, you might have a long form piece of content that you can put on YouTube. You might have like a 10-minute clip you can put on YouTube. You might have a short, which is a 1-minute video that you want to put on that platform. Those would all sit under the category of platform number 1. Same thing with Instagram. You would have your standalone image content. You can have stories, reels, or IGTVs. You have all of those different pieces of content. So you're going to identify the platforms that you're on and the types of content that you will need on each of those platforms. Then you want to connect your messaging and make sure you're creating content that's valuable for your desired audience. The second thing that you need to do is actually design your main piece of content. So in our case here at the live show, we like to create our main pillar content on our Monday live show and then follow that up with all of our micro content throughout the week. Our show is designed with a series of segments that we will later repurpose into micro content. So wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's what we're doing with this show. And you can do that for your audience as well. Matching up those pieces of content that you've identified in step number 1, stringing those together on into your show, and then following into step number 3, which is to repurpose that content, chop it up, and redistribute it as its micro content. Super simple, super cool. I'll see you in the next one. Have you seen this? Have you seen this? Okay, I gotta share a little bit about myself with you guys. I am a total nerd. My biggest nerding habit is quilting. I joke around that I've been preparing for retirement since I picked up this habit, but I absolutely adore it. And the reason I wanted to share this with you guys today is because I was looking through a quilt. This is a quilt I'm working on right now. It's a whole bunch of feathers, rainbow and black and white feathers on a cream background. And the reason I wanted to show this to you guys is because this is a great example of micro content and macro content. On the micro level, each and every quilt is made up of a series of smaller pieces. In this case, each of those feathers, there's a stem, which is one piece. There's each of the individual colors on the feathers are individual pieces of fabric that have been cut out and sewn together. And those together make an object that is beautiful. Each of the individual pieces are beautiful and interesting and catch your attention and catch your eye. And put together, they create this other thing that is beautiful. And then when you step back and you see all of those pieces put together, this beautiful quilt at the end, that macro piece of content, that totally, the example of a quilt to me exemplifies how we should be thinking about the content we're creating for our people. Where the big piece unto itself, your live show, your connection machine, is created with different pieces that are intentionally created to be redistributed as content. Instead of feeling like you're creating hooks out into the world and feeling slimy and scummy, instead, everything connects together. Everything has a purpose. Everything makes sense individually and makes sense as a whole. And I think that is a really pretty cool example. So let me know if you guys have any behind the scenes hobbies that you want to celebrate and bring out into the world, because I'm feeling a little bit vulnerable with this one today. Today's hot tip is to make sure that you're following a format with your main content that you're using. Think about whether you're creating a podcast or a live show with your people, whether you're creating live content or pre-recorded content. You want to make sure that you are intentional about what is going to happen with it afterwards. We want to make sure that every asset we create, every time we put energy into creating content for our business, we don't just want it to be one and done and burn up in the end. We want to make sure that we can repurpose it, that we can leverage it, that we can reuse it, maybe show it to a different audience, or we can utilize certain psychological triggers where we're actually showing the same piece of content to the same audience and it has a bigger impact on your perception, on your engagement, and possibly even on your conversions. And that is the importance of creating content in the first place, right? If you want to be visible, you ultimately are doing it for the one of those three goals, or maybe all three of them together. So the hot tip for this week is to make sure that you are intentional about the content that you're created and you're doing it with your repurposing plan in mind. My final thoughts for this week is to realize that this can feel really, really overwhelming. I know. So first, start out with understanding who your audience is and where they are. Simply not looking for a new audience. I mean the audience you're currently talking to. Literally, what platform are they on? List it. Are they on 2 platforms? Fine. List the 2 of them. What kind of content can you then create for that audience? Putting that down. Then create your main piece of content that you're going to release maybe once a week. Simple, once a week, easy place to start. You can replicate this process for every day of the week if you'd like to with a new piece of pillar content, but you can start this whole process to create content all week long with one piece of pillar content. So you put all of those together and then you can chop it back up and distribute it as its micro content. Each individual piece is a beautiful standalone piece of content. Together, they create a piece of longer form content that is valuable and interesting to your audience. And it allows you to then say you have an interview with someone, and in your long form piece of content, similar to the live show, you only allot, say, 20 minutes for that interview, but you ended up having a 2-hour interview and it was incredible. You can then offer that piece of content exclusively on your podcast, for example, audio only. Or maybe you offer it on your YouTube channel or behind a paywall in your community, whatever you want, but it exists as a supplementary piece of content that connects back. It makes sense. It's intentional to what you are creating on the front end, content-wise, that's free, that you're putting out there into the world. And it can also sit on the back end of that paywall as well. So thinking about your content from a macro and micro perspective is, yeah, it's overwhelming at the beginning, but once you come up with your plan and you come up with a way to get that executed, you can literally be everywhere at once. And that is a powerful, powerful place to be. So that's it for today's episode, my friends. So I will see you back on Friday for Friday Night Live here, 8 p.m. Eastern, every Friday in the visibility hacking world. But I will also see you on Mondays, 2 p.m. Eastern, for the next episode of this here wonderful live show. So I'll see you again, my friends. Until then, remember, I love you. Be excellent to each other. Go out there and find your people, because they're sitting out there and they are waiting for you. And if you haven't already, check out the Visibility Hacking YouTube channel, because we got new videos every week. I love rocking it out there, and I want to see you guys over there. So be excellent to each other. I love you. Mwah. Be great. Go get your people. Peace out. Yeah, catch you on the flip side. All of those.